am so very excited about what's going on today. We have, I don't know how many of you guys know Jesse, because like this guy needs to be known in the real estate industry, but we're bringing a top producer to you today. And here's what's fun for me. Like, it's not very often that you see a top producer selling, like last year, I think it was like 78 personals, over 100 deals with his team. This guy's being like, just taking over his market. It's unbelievable. But for me, my very favorite part is he's 24 years old and doing that. And he has figured out how to absolutely crush the game. And I I just get so excited whenever I see early success like that, because you see someone being not just committed to mastery, but also resourceful in their approach. It means that they're doing something different. And here's what I really love. The heart of this gentleman, he's coming today and he's going to share with all of us exactly how he's built so quickly a multi-million-dollar business that absolutely rivals anything out there. Jesse, thank you so much for being with us today, my man. Really exciting to have you here with the community.
Happy to be here. I think I'm excited to share my value and not, there's no secrets. So share everything I'm doing and see if you guys can't take a tip and implement it in your business. So
that's awesome. Well, let's get your screen share set up, and then I'm going to get out of your way and we'll get this thing off and kicking, man.
Sounds good.
And by the way, quick aside, I want to thank one of our top leaders here in the community, John Sellers. I know he works really closely with Jesse to help him produce the results and also to bring him to the company. John, thanks for lining up Jesse for today. Really appreciate you, brother.
Sweet. Well, should I start?
Let's do it. Let's rock and roll.
All right. So we'll talk today kind of about my approach with for sale by owners. It's been key in building my business to where it is today. And so I got my license when I was 18, and I honestly didn't have much credibility. Obviously I'm young. A lot of people are going, who's going to list their house with this 18-year-old kid? And so I started on a team where my team leader, he cold called. And so I learned cold calling, and I watched him cold call 3 hours a day, every day for probably the first 2 weeks, month, just watching him cold call, taking notes every day. And I realized what an opportunity there is within for sale by owners. And I tried to take a different approach because I think there's a lot of content out there about FSBOs. A lot of folks have tried calling for sale by owners. They haven't had success. And so we'll talk today about some of the things that I've done differently to have different results. But I think it can be massive, especially as we're in this kind of shifting market, as far as a proactive way to be intentional about growing your pipeline. And it's something that I always have that confidence in, knowing I can pick up the phones and fill my pipeline if I'm having a slow month or if I need to build inventory. And I think it'd be really valuable for everybody on the call today, whether it adds one deal a year to your pipeline or whether you end up using it as a full-time strategy and you just crush FSBOs. It's just another thing you can supplement into your business. So I've got some slides, some things we'll discuss, and then please feel free to ask questions or ask me to elaborate on stuff. We'll start with why most agents don't prospect. And I really think it just is simple. It comes down to fear of rejection. And I think it's really an entitlement thing in this industry, just because a lot of folks, it's when I work with sphere clients or sphere referral. I mean, obviously that's great. They already know, like, and trust me. There's not that building rapport as much. I come in that triangle of trust. But a lot of agents simply, whether they want to admit it or not, don't prospect because they don't want to be rejected, especially in person, but over the phone still hurts too. And so I really think it comes down to them just being uncomfortable. Or my favorite one is it's too salesy. That's my favorite. I love hearing that from agents. Oh, it's too salesy. I just, I don't like having to, try to, pitch somebody. It's like, we are in a sales business, and it's an opportunity there. So don't take food off your own table. And I always say that you have to get over the fear and realize what's truly scary, and that's an empty pipeline. And that's something I realized really early on. I was totally fine getting told no on the phone. Somebody could spit in my face. It's better than not have any deals in escrow. And so this strategy worked wonders for me. And it really comes down to just a numbers game. You can work as many FSBOs as you want. I had days I'd make 100 calls. I'd have weeks where I'd go a whole week making 100 calls a day. And so you can really build that way. But I really believe that fear and anxiety comes from a lack of understanding and a lack of confidence in what to say once you're on the phone with them. And I think everybody feels that when you first start prospecting. We'll talk a lot about this today, but what you say and what your system is doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to have confidence and come from a place of value and really try to understand to the best of your ability. A lot of that comes with the experience. So don't get me wrong. When I first started calling, gosh, I'd stutter. I'd mess up on how I said something. All this stuff comes, like, that mastery comes from just repeated, consistent prospecting. And so, I wasn't phenomenal on my first 1,000 calls. And my conversion rate got a lot better every day I made calls. So, and I'm a big believer that you need to be obsessed, and it needs to be something that you're consistent with. At least that's my secret. Not everyone needs to be as obsessive as me. My wife would tell you I'm very obsessive, but I think it's important because you can really master it that way. And so, talk a little bit more. So, I look at it as prospecting.
Hey, Jess, can I add on that? This
Please.
is tools like, can you share that these are tools that you're teaching to your team today that are 18 years old?
Yeah,
so while people are saying you've made 1,000 calls, you're still
Yeah.
teaching this to guys that are 18 and 19, and they haven't done 500 calls. And what kind
Right.
of deals are they converting?
The first call that one of my agents made on the team, who was 19 at the time, first FSBO call, he converted to a $550,000 listing that sold within the first week. And so, I mean, like, and that was a full commission. That's not a discount. I mean, that was his first for sale by owner ever. I remember him being shocked when the guy was like, when can you come out? And he's like, oh my God, Jesse, what do I even say? I think he like muted the call and like came into my office, and I was like, well, you tell him what time we'll be there. It's like, good job. That's great work. But obviously it's a numbers game. But yeah, I'm teaching this to all the people on my team. I think it's really important because I think the reason that I'm the success that I've had today and the reason I'm still in the industry comes from the fact that I started with prospecting, because I really think, and it ties into this learning to hunt strategy. It just gives me a different level of confidence. So I kind of put that here. What would it look like if you could grow your business through prospecting, and how would it empower you to grow your business? Because it kind of takes that, I think a good business has hunting and farming, right? So hunting is proactive activities, whether it be open houses, door knocking, cold calling, and farming, working your database, sending mailers, doing community events. Farming, a great business has both. Farming has great benefits. We farm real estate now. I didn't farm at the beginning, but it also requires resources. And that's why I think it's important to know how to hunt and go out there and get yourself a deal. And I have the confidence of knowing if I worked the phones today, that I could end up with a couple listing appointments and most likely a converted closed listing signed contract, just off calling today. So it gives me that confidence. So we'll talk a little bit more. So I kind of put my 3 reasons why most agents cannot convert a for sale by owner. And I think that the number one problem comes down to the fact that they don't really understand the mindset and the psychology of a for sale by owner. That's something that I've always been kind of passionate about. The reason I'm in this business is because I love people. And so I like to understand people's psychologies, understand what makes people tick, what their motivation is. And I think a lot of people just assume, the wrong thing about for sale by owners. And so I think it's key to understand them in order to communicate with them effectively, just like anybody else. I think the other problem is that it comes down to the fact their approach simply doesn't work. They call once or twice, struggle to get a word in, and can't handle the rejection. So they decide FSBOs are a waste of time. I cannot tell you how many people my whole career, when I first started, I was working with Keller Williams, and I'd have agents. It was the largest brokerage in my county at the time. And they'd come up and go, Jesse, what's the secret? How you're building your business? I'm this 19-year-old kid that's, rookie of the year. And, I'd say, oh, I'm cold calling every day. And they'd go, oh, what are you doing? I'd tell them exactly what I'm doing. I'd let them watch me, whatever they wanted to do. I'd even help them, coach them on the phone. A week later, they'd come back to me and they go, I tried FSBOs, Jesse, it just doesn't work for me. I don't know. You must be doing something different. That's all you keep calling them. And I think it's just the fact that they weren't consistent and they weren't willing to go through that process of learning how to ride a bike, falling off your bike, scraping your knee, getting back up. You have to be willing to go through that and just consistently prospect. They're not a waste of your time. That's how I've run my business. And my agents on my team are a proven fact that they can reproduce that. So problem 3 is that they just don't have a system. I think systems are super important. I'm not a huge fan of the word system because I think it's kind of overused in real estate in many ways. I don't want that to be like a complicated idea. It's just have a strategy and do it over and over again in that way. Test your theory and then modify your system and continue to grow and kind of tweak those levers and change little things. Having a plan of action, I think, is extremely important. And I think a lot of times the agent doesn't really understand their goal, or their goal of the call isn't really a sound goal, meaning that they think their goal is to convince the for sale by owner that it won't sell unless they list. That's wrong, right? You need a system, a process, and to know your goal of the phone call. And for me, my goal was always to get an appointment. And I train my guys strictly on this on the team, that it is not something where you lie and say you have a buyer just to get the appointment. I think that is one of the worst strategies people use with for sale by owners all the time, just to get in the door. Your goal should be to get them to meet with you in person, because these for sale by owners, A lot of times are receiving, anymore, less people are prospecting, which is why it's such an opportunity right now for everybody on the call. When I was cold calling every day consistently, I would say there's probably 20 people blowing those people's phones up all day. And so they're getting their phones blown up. They're annoyed. They're on defense mode. And so getting them to meet with me in person kind of that lowered their guard a little bit. And it was more of like a one-on-one meeting rather than just talking to somebody on the phone, because at that point they don't know me from Adam. So I think your goal should always be to get an appointment, but not lying or manipulating, saying you have a buyer to get in the door. I know that's what a lot of agents do. So talk a little bit more about that, but we'll kind of dive into the understanding of for sale by owner. So like I said, I think understanding a FSBO is key, and understanding the why behind the FSBO is very important in order to convert them at the highest level, starting with their why. So why are they selling, and why didn't they list with an agent to begin with? And so I've worked with dozens and dozens of for sale by owners. And a lot of them do have similar traits or similar reasons. They may have had a bad experience working with an agent before. They may think that real estate agents don't really do much. My sister-in-law is a real estate agent. If she can sell a house, I can sell a house, right? Or maybe they're a retired industry professional. Understanding this though, and being willing to ask that question to really understand the why. And not only why are they selling it themselves, but why are they selling to begin with, so that I can serve them at the highest level and really communicate effectively, kind of that pain and pleasure model. But seek to understand before you try to close them on your value. If I don't understand why a for sale by owner is selling, or why they're a for sale by owner to begin with, how am I really going to know what approach is best for them? So that's something at the very beginning that I really focus on. Keep in mind, it might be a dozen phone calls to this for sale by owner, like a dozen conversations before we end up closing and converting them into a signed listing. And so I'm building data. So if I have the first call and I learn information, that's going to change the way I approach my second call, my third call, and all the way down the line. And so if you know why they are selling and why they chose to sell themselves, you are far more likely to be able to show them why they need to list with you. And my approach changes as my knowledge changes. So not all FSBOs are the same. I know a lot of people have this kind of stereotype of for sale by owners that they're stubborn, maybe they're aggressive, maybe you've gotten kind of hung up on by a for sale by owner. You think they're hard to work with, not coachable. That's not true, right? I think that a lot of people, they get a bad rap. So I've had lots of good for sale by owners, and not only have I converted them into the single transaction, but a lot of times I found that a lot of for sale by owners typically are investors or people that buy and sell real estate on a more frequent basis. That's why they're comfortable enough to try to sell it themselves to begin with. I get high quantity of referrals from past clients that were for sale by owners, and it really comes down to the fact that it's just a different process with them. So if somebody refers a deal, like John refers me a deal, and I work with that seller, obviously that's a great thing. I love working referrals, but when I work a for sale by owner from the get-go, that relationship's just a little different. And typically it's a different approach. They don't know me, and they really get to experience what it was like trying to sell themselves and then working with me, and how much better that experience was. So I think that they just have a tendency of sending referrals, just because a lot of them know other people that are going to be for sale by owners, that they're like, don't waste your time doing that. Talk to Jesse. Give them a call. And so that's been massive for me. I'm a big believer. This is one of my 4 agreements. Don't assume. So I think too many agents assume that FSBOs understand real estate. And I think that's just not true. Never make assumptions. The seller may think that listing agents simply practice the 3 Ps of real estate. That was one of the things that I'm sure everybody on my team could tell you. I probably say every day. 3 Ps are, put a sign in the yard, put it in MLS, and pray somebody else sells it. And unfortunately, that is true of a lot of agents. They just put it in MLS and pray somebody else sells it, and they do the bare minimum. Maybe they had a bad experience. They don't understand the value of a listing agent, and due to their experience in the past. I found many for sale by owners to have really inaccurate beliefs of how the process works. And so I'm a big believer in educating them, providing insight, and coming from a genuine place of providing value to the seller. And you'll get them to self-realize that they need to list with you. And that's a key term we'll talk a little more about, is that self-realization. Your goal should never be to convince them to list. Your goal should be to educate them to the point that they realize they're doing themselves a major disservice by not listing. I'm never going to convince or strong arm somebody into listing with me. My goal is to give them the information and show them my process, have an opportunity to give them my listing presentation to get them to kind of self-realize that, they'd be better served working with an agent like me. And so you get them to self-realize by asking high-level questions, learning their why, all the things we'll talk a little bit more about. And feel free to stop me if you guys have any questions or want me to elaborate on anything a little further. So where do I find these FSBOs? John brought this up yesterday when I was kind of going over the script that I didn't have where I find them in there. So I got to start with fundamentals. So and it's true, it's a good point, because many agents that I talk to say, oh, I've ran out of people to call. I really believe that if you've ran out of people to call, that's usually not true. Depending on the size of your market, it's just simply not true. Unless you're really tying yourself to one specific city. If you're working an hour radius of wherever your office is, there's typically going to be enough FSBOs that, especially if you're following up properly with these people, you have plenty of people to call. And that's in today's market. That's every day. They're always new for sell by owner listings. If you look hard enough, you just need to know where to look. And you can even create automatic alerts using keywords to notify you different things on multiple different sites, whether it be Zillow, Craigslist. I tell all my sphere to go and take pictures of yard signs. If they see a FSBO, take a picture of it, send it to me. And so I get texts all the time with a yard sign. Hey, my neighbor just listed FSBO. You should give them a call, whether it be a past client or just somebody that I'm friends with that know that I work for sell by owners. And so that's something that you can kind of get the word out there. Hey, if you see a listing or if your neighbor puts a sign in the yard for sell by owner, have them give me a call. I've even seen agents that go to like Bimart or Walmart where they sell these signs and they put their card on the signs, little things like that. I think are kind of, they're fun, but I think that just knowing where to look and how to find them, knowing how to use the technology we have to notify you or set up those, keyword alerts, things like that. Craigslist is huge with the keyword alerts. So you can be quick to jump on the newest FSBO. My 4-step FSBO plan for the purposes of the call today. So understanding their why, we talked about that a little bit. That self-realization aspect of getting them asking key questions like how are they currently marketing the property, things that are going to highlight maybe points of weakness in their marketing, lack of exposure they may be getting, just pointing out real data, using facts, not telling them they did a bad job, not saying your photos are horrible, but getting them to self-realize, whether that be I show them photos of a before and after of the original for sell by owners ad before they listed with me, to here's my photo package, here's all our marketing, here's my listing. If you were a buyer looking at these, that's a big thing that, it's not about how I pitch them on that. They can look for themselves and see side by side, oh, look, wow, this property looks way better in these photos. And they can see that value and start to get that wheel starts to turn that, wow, maybe I'm doing myself a disservice. Providing massive value. I'm a big believer, and this is something that really helped me in the FSBO game, that you have to provide as much value as possible to your clients, and not only provide that value, but know how to showcase that and really get them to see your value. I think a lot of agents just lack that confidence in the value they provide. And so I think practicing and having a strategic, listing presentation, knowing how to show them the value of working with you is super key. And depending on their why, using things like sale data, past client reviews are a huge one. We're in a review economy. Photo comparisons, like I talked about, all of that can help show your value. And then differentiate or die. So finding a way to differentiate yourself from other agents. So what can you provide? What do you do differently than most agents? Why should they work with you versus the 19 other agents that called them this morning? So I personally provide like in-house services. So I don't do discount listings, but I provide services that can be helpful, especially to folks like for sell by owners. I think we've probably all seen the for sell by owner with, beds that are all over the place, stuff all over the house, just not looking good, not presenting the listing well. So things like, the professional home cleaning that we offer, junk removal services. We'll send our junk removal guys out there, clear out the trash, clean up the property a little bit. Things like that are super low cost to me, but also add value to the client and help us stand out. We'll talk more about what we do differently in the services I provide. I'll show you some of the things that I include, and maybe you can find one that might work for you. So what do you do differently? So I'm a big believer, this is something that's been really, really effective for me, is partnering with local business owners to provide in-house services that add value to a prospective seller. So those examples could be junk removal, home cleaners, gutter cleaning, pressure washing, landscaping, list goes on. These are all other local business owners that you can partner with to add value to your clients. You can arrange that work to be paid out of escrow. You can negotiate a service contract with these contractors. However you end up doing that for yourself, You can choose, limits, put constraints around these things. Of course, you want to have those in place. But not only are you adding value to the client, but you're also helping other business owners grow. So all the while I'm getting these listings, I'm getting higher rates of referrals because I'm really crushing it out of the park for these clients by, maybe they need a room painted. I send my painter in, and then my painter sends me a referral because I'm sending him business. My painter gets more jobs because those clients end up working with him again. It's helping everyone involved. And I think that's a pretty important thing to look at there and how you might be able to implement that in your business. Most for sale owners have had a bad experience in the past when working with agents. So they usually fear commitment. They have commitment issues. So I'm a big believer that talk is cheap, especially when you don't know these people at all. They just have met you, maybe you're on the phone with them. So I offer a non-commitment contract basically that allows them to terminate if I don't follow through on what I said. Now, I don't know about you guys. I would not want to work with a seller that does not want to work with me. So whether you have that in your contracts now or not, if your client doesn't want to work with you, obviously there might be something going on there. And I wouldn't want to work with those folks. So I think putting that in there, it's just a added measure for these folks that maybe have those commitment issues. I've never been fired. That's something that I think is important to share. I put it in there that they can terminate anytime. I've never been fired. I never try to give them a reason to fire me. And I follow through on what I say I'm going to do. And then be strategic. Now, this is a little thing, right? So aren't all agents strategic? Maybe in their own way. But I think that people don't underestimate the bare minimum. I am shocked with how little people prepare, before the appointment. I'm somebody that really is a believer in preparation and being strategic. So I prepare my listing binders. I've got one here. Prepare these for all my listings. Is something as small and as cheap as this little, whatever, 50-cent binder from Walmart, is just one little thing that I do to differentiate myself. And I'll tell you that I've had clients that I had one seller this year that interviewed for 13 agents. And this binder was one of the reasons that I ended up getting that listing, as funny as it sounds, because a lot of the agents hand them just a stack of paper and, oh, this goes on the coffee table, coffee gets spilled all over it. It's nothing physical. I've had clients that keep these for years. They keep all their paperwork in there. It has their CMA, has all sorts of information. We'll talk about what I put in there, but little things like that where I'm prepped and I've got my full binder created with all my reviews, the county records, a bunch of talking points throughout that presentation really show that I put that time and energy into prepping that. I have my staff prep that. Typically it takes me 5 minutes. I keep 10 of them prepped and ready. That way I can just run out the door, throw my CMA in there. Just little things like that can just make you stand out from other agents as well.
Hey, Jesse.
Yep.
So it looks like we've got someone with a question here, so I want to bring him up. This is the G team, and let's see if we can get those guys unmuted.
Wonderful.
Jesse.
Hi.
Hi, we really loved your whole networking with your service providers and stuff, and I wanted to get a little bit of clarification. You said it doesn't cost you much. So could you tell us what it is that you pay for, and then also if there's things that are going to be paid out of escrow, what do you make it clear to the seller that, hey, if this doesn't work out and you decide not to sell, you got to get these people paid? I mean, how do you handle that real quick?
That is a great question. And so really what we cover is going to be, we'll send in our landscapers. Now we put limits on this stuff, depending on the size of the property, of course. But it really comes down to like, if we're going to send, tons of general contractors, plumbers, electricians, things like that. We don't pay for those. We'll arrange the work out of escrow, but we're very clear with the seller, and we have a very intentional sit down meeting built into our process where we talk about what they want to do, what our advice would be around updates or repairs that may be needed as far as adding value and getting the listing sold for the highest and best dollar. So those type of things, we really just are intentional about having that conversation. The things that we do pay for, though, obviously we pay for our marketing package, all our photography. I pay for the cleaners out of pocket, the yard maintenance out of pocket. Now these people I have arrangements with, so with my landscapers, they're paid out of escrow. But if it's a large job, they're going to do some major landscaping overhaul, I tell my clients, we do a cleanup service, and we'll come out and mow the grass if it's growing like crazy, so it's not looking bad. But we're, as far as bringing in, tons of bark and all of these things, sometimes I'll have them pay for the materials, I'll pay for the labor. Really, it comes down to what's important to you guys. I typically take 3.5% on my listing side, so that extra 0.5 point helps me offset the additional costs from these services that I provide as well. And like I said, I have arrangements with these contractors, and I can tell you that every one of the people on the list that I have, like whether it be my cleaner, my landscaper, the gutter cleaners that I use, they've all sent me referrals throughout the year. So obviously you can't rely on that to offset costs, but I mean, having those relationships have been massive for me, and they've been very profitable. And it's something that sellers really appreciate. I had one seller that was a for sale by owner. It was an estate. She was a widow. Her husband had passed away, really unexpected. She'd never bought or sold a home. House was full of stuff. It was an acre of land here in Cottage Grove up on a hill, super overgrown, just blackberries everywhere, kind of junk all over the property. She was honestly like, she didn't even know what to do. Like she was almost in tears. Like she was very scared about the process, and it was just her and her son. And I came in and I, send my landscapers in, everybody in the crew, they know what's happening. She was in tears. Like she was literally crying with us. Like when she saw the photos and like the before and after, and you just don't understand how much, not only can it benefit the seller as far as getting them a higher sell price, like we probably increased the value of that property, a very large amount for her, and took that weight off her shoulders. That's the biggest thing. So, I mean, clients are overwhelmed. I always tell my clients I want them focusing on what's important, and that I can send in my crew to work out the details on the little things. Just, don't worry about having to sweep up and, oh, I need to, go out there and mow the grass right before the open house. We can get our landscaper in there. We've got professionals that can take that off their shoulders. But these are some of the things we provide. Really comes down to kind of a case-to-case situation. I'm very clear with my clients on what these items mean, and what, like with the moving assistance, like we'll get a U-Haul. I'm in process actually looking into buying our own little truck, just so we don't have to rent the U-Hauls anymore. But we send extra hands to help them move, help them load stuff, the heavy items, things like that. And we have extra muscle ready to assist. But these are just some of the things that we do. You don't have to choose to offer all these services. Honestly, I think that I tell my clients I wish they'd use more of these services. You'd be surprised. A lot of them don't want to abuse this. We don't need the cleaner. And I'm like, are you sure? Let's, I'm happy to send them in here. It's no big deal. But it's something that maybe you just offer one or two of these services, and it might differentiate yourself from other agents and help provide value, and you can help other business owners grow alongside you. So,
Jesse, one more question that came up in the chat, and thank you for these answers. This is really good stuff, man. Killing it. Chad asks, and I think this was pertaining to the last slide, but that's fine. He said, what keeps people from taking your price and running with it themselves?
That's a great question. What keeps them from doing that? Technically, I tell people all the time, you could list with me, get your grass mowed, get your yard cleaned up, fire me, and go back on the market. I believe in my value. I've never had a client do that. I'm not saying, knock on wood, that could happen in the future, of course, but it's something where I believe in my value. I'm confident that my clients believe in my value, and, my process and experience, my reviews speak to that. Like I said, I've never had that happen. I just think that it's something where I maybe overly trust people in that way, but it's worked for me in the fact that, like, I come from a place of providing value. I'm willing, and I tell people, I'm putting skin in the game here. I'm investing into your property. I'm investing into our relationship. And technically they could have used that totally. But I think that's true of on all sides. What's to keep your listing you just went live with today, from taking your photos or trying to go back in MLS or going on their own or whatever it might be. I don't believe, it's kind of like buyer broker agreements. This might be a flaw. I know John and I have talked about this a little bit. I don't have my clients sign buyer broker agreements because I really don't think that signature on the agreement is going to keep them working with me. I think it's our relationship and the value that I provide and the knowledge and the obsession I have with real estate that keeps them wanting to work with me. And so I don't force them. I don't make them sign. There's no details in the contract that say they have to list with me for 90 days. I just provide that value and try to be a man of my word and do the right thing, and it's kept people working with me. So.
Hey,
Thanks, Jesse.
One of the things I was curious about is that, my perception, and a lot of agents, I believe, perception is, hey, FSBOs are just trying to get the cheapest deal. So if you're not giving a discount commission, you're not going to get that listing for a FSBO. And I think I'm hearing that that's not true from your experience.
No, because is that really a perception or is it an assumption? And I think that people don't understand or have confidence in their value. And I have full confidence, a full belief. If a FSBO goes, well, I have a guy that'll do it for 4.5, I go, great, call him. That's wonderful. How many homes has he sold? And I'll bring up there's typical FSBO scripts of the discount agent of, they're already giving up their own money that they feed their family with. How hard are they going to fight for your proceeds and the net to you at the end of the day? I'm not a discount agent. I'm not the cheapest listing agent out there. There's plenty of agents. I'd refer them over to a discount agent if they want to do. There's listing agents that'll do it for 1%. I think that being transparent and knowing your value, that's something that I think has been a major strength for me, because I think a lot of agents panic. I've seen this on appointments with my team, that where they go out and the people bring that up and immediately they go, oh, well, I think we can do, we could do it for 5. Maybe we could do it for 5. And they don't even like hesitate. I think that leaving that silence and admitting, yeah, there are people that will do it for cheaper. There's no doubt about it. Like there's always going to be a cheaper person. There's always going to be ways they could technically save on money. I know and have full confidence, and I show them the results of what we provide and how much value that adds to a client. Just the landscaping alone for some of these properties, I mean, it more than makes up for the extra 1% between 5 and 6 for them at the end of the day. And so that's something that, I mean, you can never, I mean, there's going to be agents that are willing to do it for 3%. They're going to take 1 and put the buyer's agent commission at 2% MLS. I'm fully aware of that. And I don't try to tell them, oh, that's not true. Or, oh, that agent's horrible, you shouldn't work with them. No, there are people that are cheaper and they may work for you, but here's what I provide. Here's the value that I have. Here's all my experience that I bring to this. And I just let the results speak for themselves. So that makes sense, Sean? You're muted. Oh, I can hear John there, but I'll move on to the next slide here. So
That's awesome, Jesse. Thank you.
of course, I think showing them reviews. So I've got reviews from for sale by owners that I keep all of my reviews in the back of this handy binder. I think that's my evidence of success. One of the things I pride myself on is I've never received anything less than a 5-star review. And so, I've got reviews like this one up in the top left. We tried to sell our home on our own for a while without results. At first, I was skeptical about hiring a realtor. Of course, they were. After meeting Jesse, spelled my name wrong, but that's okay. They sent me referrals, so that's what matters. But we're pleasantly surprised with this easygoing demeanor, which I think is a hilarious comment, because my wife would not say that I'm very easygoing, but I'm pretty obsessive and intense. But the vast knowledge in the real estate business, and they said that we're sorry that we didn't sign up with him earlier. He's a great asset to anyone that's trying to sell their home. And I sold their home for $16,000 over asking. These folks were listed, not when they say a while, they were on the market for over a year as a for sale by owner. Over a year, and within that, that first week of listing, we were able to get them an offer 16,000 over ask. But I think having these reviews, and I tell them all the time that I'm not going to, pick and choose the people that you could call, but you could draw a name out of a hat of any of my past clients. They'd be happy to talk to you and tell them, tell you all about their experience of working with me. All the clients I've worked with, none of that, I can sleep soundly at night knowing that I've provided great service and that they're all raving fans. And so I think that's something that's really important. I think I'm going through my slides pretty fast here, so feel free to stop me, but I keep 50, 60 reviews in the back of this binder. I think it's something that's super important. It's something they can tie into and look at. And I tell them, these are not just my favorite reviews. These are not just the 5 stars that I include in this binder. You can research me online, find all my reviews. You'll see the same thing, nothing but positive information about me out there. So following up, I think in understanding and having a system to your follow-up plan is very key. With any sort of active prospecting, I think follow-up is 90% or maybe the 80% of the work that really gets you the results. Having a plan for this is extremely important. So something that you can do consistently. So my routine looked like an hour of active prospecting every day, an hour of follow-up time, and an hour of CRM management or database management. If I didn't have follow-ups, I'd make another hour of prospecting calls. But having a routine where you're going to consistently follow up so you don't drop the ball, that's where I think a lot of agents fail. I've seen this with agents on my team where the for sale by owner says, oh, call me in a week. They wait to call them in a week, and that for sale by owner listed 2 days early, right? Somebody else called them sooner, or maybe they forgot to call them on the exact week point. Having these systems in place help you not let those slip through the cracks. I always say cut that timeline in half as well, just to give a little highlight. So if somebody tells you call them in 2 weeks, call them in a week. Do not wait 2 weeks. I'm a big believer that you're going to lose a lot more business, not following up aggressively enough than you will ever lose from following up too aggressively. I know people hesitate because they don't want to be salesy. You got to get over that fear. That's just a limiting belief. At the end of the day, if somebody gets mad at me because I called them in a week rather than 2 weeks, I told you to call me 2 weeks. That just shows that I'm obsessive, I'm aggressive, and it's why I get results, right? And I'd much rather call somebody and hit their voicemail, or have them find me salesy or maybe even annoying, oh gosh, that word, then lose that listing to another agent that was willing to call them a little sooner. And I've seen it enough times for myself that it can happen. So let's see where we'll take off. I couldn't tell you how many times I've had agents call me and say, man, you got that listing. I've been working for weeks. I was supposed to call them next week. Like, that's just another testament. That happened all the time. It still happens to this point. It happens to everybody. I've lost listings that way. But it's something that, like, I really believe you just got to be willing to follow up and be aggressive with that follow-up plan, and know that plan. You can make it a lot easier. People make it too hard on themselves. Like, I used to have copy and paste text scripts saved in my notes on my iPhone. Everybody here could do this. This doesn't cost money. You don't have to pay $1,000 a month for CRM. Don't need any fancy tools. Pre-write your texts. Pre-write your text into a notes file on your phone. Copy and paste those every morning. If you're not going to call and follow up, it's better to send them a text, at least so you're top of mind, top of their inbox. And just copy and paste script. Hey, how's your listing going? Whatever it might be. Usually be a little more elaborated than just how's your listing going, but just, it's better than no follow-up. Having those copy paste scripts makes it super easy. Just cut in the name, change Matt, John, Jeff, whoever it might be. Super simple. It's copy paste. I could get 100 texts sent out in 20 minutes or so. So be willing to face that rejection and still continue to try. So I have a little story I tell all my agents on the team that I think it's a funny one. I remember when I first started cold calling, I was watching my team leader at the time cold call, and he called this gentleman and he butchered the last name. So, like, I'll just use my own. My last name's Haffly. He called and he's like, hey, Mr. Haffly, or just completely butchered the guy's last name. And the guy was really mad. He's like, it's this, it's Haffly, not Haffly. And he hung up on him. And I remember he immediately put his phone down, went over to his office phone, different phone number, rung the guy up literally right after he just got hung up on, and was like, hey, Mr. Haffly. And the guy didn't even remember him. He ended up converting it, closing the listing. That was one that literally blew me away, because, it's something that I think too many people are like, oh God, that guy hung up on me. I can never call him again. It's like, we literally got that listing after that guy hung up. We butchered his last name, hung up on the phone with us. It's like, people, I think agents think they're more important than they are. People don't remember, it's like, this is just the initial cold call. It was a 2-second conversation. It was literally in the same 5-minute window that we called him. You'd think he'd be like, oh, I recognize this guy's voice. Nope. And I'm sure he's getting blown up. So I'm sure that we were not the first ones to butcher his last name. It was a complicated one. But follow-up can be hard, but not every no means you're one step closer to a yes. And it's really all a numbers game. So I talked earlier about the agent on my team that his first FSBO call ever, he converted into a listing. And I said, congratulations. Now your next 20 calls, 40 calls are going to be all no's. But that's okay. And that's a good thing, right? Because every no, you're one step closer to a yes. And it's just a numbers game. For me, when my conversion rate's about 20-1 for an appointment. And it's something where I have really high levels of appointments to actual signed listings. And so I know that if I make 20 phone calls, I might get the first one. It might be the 20th one. It's just a numbers game, and every no or a little bit of rejection really doesn't hurt. I think that there's value to be gained from every call, even where they hang up, or you've learned that you said the guy's last name wrong. You can update your notes on the listing in your CRM and say, that is not how you pronounce his last name, and give yourself a little tip. The next time you call him, you'll say it right. Have a system of some sort. So where I'm at now, I use my CRM, I use Brevity, but you could literally just use a spreadsheet. So at the very beginning, the reason that I started hunting is I didn't have resources. I didn't have the money, the budget to pay for all these systems and all these fancy technology things. So I just used very basic things. You could use a notepad if you really wanted to. I think having a spreadsheet is important because it's a little more dynamic. But I mean, that's entirely free. Keep your addresses, keep notes on each seller. Why are they selling? Have your questions. I'd be happy to send out the stuff that I use, but with the CRM that I use, I can custom tag them as FSBO, put them on automatic email campaigns, text campaigns, send out videos, put them on property alerts, market updates, things like that are just little automatic drips. I don't expect that to convert the listing for me. It's just a way that I can keep track of these people. I think that's something that's important to know. If you put a FSBO on a drip campaign and expect that to ever go anywhere, it's not going to work. But if you put them on a drip campaign, you have them on an automatic text campaign that's going to, 10 days of pain or whatever you're going to use, where it's going to constantly follow up with them. It's just an added measure. I'm still going to proactively call them, and I set automatic calendar reminders to call certain FSBOs on certain dates. If I haven't talked to them in quite some time, because I don't know about you guys, I'm very competitive. I truly fires me up. I think everybody on my team could mention that when I go on and I realize that somebody listed that FSBO that I've been talking to for 2 weeks. and I see the agent, and I'm like, oh, they shouldn't list with them. I should have got that. And so I'm like, it's something that's why I put them in my CRM, is because I want to limit that from happening as many times as possible. And I think that tracking this information is absolutely key. So I think tracking is important in everything we do, but especially if you're going to choose, whether it be open houses, door knocking for sell by owners. I used to work a ton of expireds, which is going to become more and more common in this market. Whatever you're doing as far as prospecting, I think tracking this information and the data is so important, because not only does it give you the data to know how many calls you need to make to get a closed deal, but it gives you all that data is going to be useful in converting them into a client that is a raving fan, whether it be how many kids do they have, all this information, tracking all of it. They have a dog that's named Julie, right? I mean, all that stuff is very important. And it's shocking how few people really appreciate it, because the more you know about somebody, the more data you have on them, which in the world we live in, I literally would have my dialer set up. I used to use Vulcan 7, and I'd have Facebook open in another tab. I'd look the people up. I'd get their county records in front of me, so I'd know the seller's name. I'd look them up, and I'd know their interests. And I'd conveniently bring up the Dolphins game, because I saw that they posted they loved the Dolphins game. I go, yeah, I'm getting ready to watch the Dolphins game this weekend. And they're like, you're a Dolphins fan? I'm like, oh, biggest Dolphins fan in the world, right? And it's like, I just saw they posted their football party they had on Sunday. And to be honest, I'm not a Dolphins fan, but I know that's something that's important to them. And so with all the information we have out there online, like, you can learn a lot about people, kind of see what makes them tick in that way. And it's useful in converting them. People want to work with people that are like them.
Hey, Jesse, I want to come back to something you said about technology, in that, we have so many systems today, and you hear these things where, you get these ads. Oh yeah, we're going to generate these leads, and they're going to be sifted through the database, and then they're going to call you.
Yeah.
And I just believe that's just not true. And I'm hearing you saying that as well. It's like those things are all to support the activity of the call or the in-person contact. Could you walk through that a little?
100%. And, even if those systems do potentially sift through, sort through, scrub those leads for you, I think it's a horrible thing. I think agents have lost that art. I think people don't want to do their work. They want technology to do it for them. Really, how hard is it to make phone calls? There are people that are out working in snowstorms today, putting power lines back up, risking their lives to keep the power on for us, right? How hard is it to go through and to scrub leads yourself? We're in a high ticket business. The average price point for the FSBOs on listing is probably around $450 to $550. A lot of these are higher dollar listings. And so it's like, this is a large commission at stake. And for me to just expect this technology that I'm paying $2,000 a month for, to do that for me, I think people just become reliant on it, and they lose that skill set, that art of, which I really think it is an art of building those relationships and converting those people into clients. I just don't believe in those as being sustainable. So I think that, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I think that you have to be willing to do that work yourself. And anything that CRM system, whatever you're paying for, that company offers, I know there's like services that'll basically scrub your entire database of leads for you and do the follow-up calls. And that's all fine and dandy. But if I provided a service to my team that did the follow-up for my agents, John, how well would my agents follow up without that system?
Not
right?
well.
It's taking away that learning opportunity, right? And they need to understand the value of follow-up, because sure, I can third party it out, or I could get VAs to do it, or whatever it might be. That I'm, maybe people on the call even are having success with that. I just am a big believer that when you take yourself away from that, one of my mentors, Robin Lavasser, who's one of the top lenders here in Oregon, she used to talk about, don't get too far away from the money. And I think that's something that with time, I've really learned to value. This is my, 5 years in. I think a lot of agents I've seen, get far away from that money. They start to have that luxury. Like when I started, I didn't have the resources to pay for a lot of these systems. I think you start to build your business, you start to have that privilege, you start paying for these systems, and you kind of rely on it at a certain point, and you're kind of distancing yourself from what really made the money to begin with. And at the end of the day, I don't care what system it is. I don't care how much it costs a month. Nothing will supplement my ability to follow up with these people personally. And so as much as sure, it's a time limitation, like, don't make excuses. Like I said, have something as cheap and easy, like 10 minutes of your time, type your text script into your phone and copy and paste it to all those clients. It's little things like that, being prepared to leave voicemails. I use technology, I just don't rely on it.
Well, I think one of the things you're saying in there is that, as people it's funny, we get better at things and the business gets easier, and then we get softer.
Exactly.
And then we have a market shift like we have today. And in a hot market, marketing-based system works better. I mean, marketing systems work well in that you're going to get more calls coming in. When we have a slowdown in the market, it's a prospecting-based system. I mean, it's a prospecting-based time now. Now is, would you talk to me through this of like, is now more important? Are you having to make more calls now even to get referrals than you did a year ago?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons that I was excited to give this call or have this call today and to be able to share this with everybody, is that I think that it's something that gives me confidence. I cannot tell you how much fear I'm hearing out of other agents when I'm talking to them, especially in the last couple of months. I mean, I've seen agents that have been in the business a while that are getting out of the industry, that are stressed. Oh, where are these deals going to come from? Or, how's your pipeline? I don't have anything in my pipeline. And I feel so bad because they're speaking from a place of complete fear, just fear-based thinking. And I think that this ability to prospect, of course, yeah, I'm having to make more calls right now. And it's something that I'm excited to do and I've been preparing for. And my wife will say that I'm a psychopath in this way, because I'm like, I've been waiting for this shift because I think it's an opportunity. And I think that agents that have prospecting-based businesses are going to thrive through this, because how much it costs me to call these people. How much does it cost me? I mean, just my time. I can call them. I already have a phone, right? It's like, this is stuff that I can do that doesn't cost me $5,000 a month for my marketing with Zillow, only to barely break even. This is something where I can sit down and with my skill set that I've developed, that hasn't always been as good as it is today, hasn't always been perfect. I can call and know and be confident in the fact that I can create business and fill my pipeline. And it doesn't require one of my past clients to send me a referral. There's always going to be people selling. And I think as the market shifts, we may even see more for sell by owners. Like I said earlier, we're going to see more withdrawn or expired listings. That these are all opportunities that you can market to. And if you haven't done it and it's uncomfortable, good. You should get more comfortable with it. How do you get more comfortable with it? Exposure, by doing it, right? Just like any other fear. And I think that if you choose to do that, like I said, what's truly more scary? Talking to a for sale by owner, somebody you've never met before, ooh, terrifying, a stranger, or having no deals in your pipeline and being stressed about how you're going to pay your mortgage all of next month. I will tell you that the rejection that I get from a FSBO that might be a little grumpy when I call them this morning is nothing compared to what I know people stress about paying the mortgage every single month, or having to keep food on the table and things like that. And so this really empowers me and gives me confidence as we face the shifts in the market that we're seeing, that I can always create listings, fill my pipeline. I always say that even if I lost my license in Oregon, heaven forbid, or I had to move out of state, you drop me in Australia tomorrow, John, I'll build my business prospecting. I'll have to change my script, change my dialect a little bit. I don't want to seem like I'm completely out of place, but I think it's something that it's really given me a lot of confidence. And it's why I train my agents to begin with. I don't just start handing them Zillow leads. I don't just start, spoon feeding them leads. I tell them, okay, I'm going to teach you how to hunt, because it's just like that analogy of like, give a man a fish or teach a man to fish. It's the confidence it gives you as an agent to know how to fish and provide for yourself. And then great, they know how to provide for themselves. They're actively prospecting. It's keeping them busy. They're building that experience. They might get hung up on all these different things, but they're growing. And oh, here, by the way, here's 10 buyer referrals that 10 buyer leads that came off our listings as well. And so not only are they getting I'm giving them some fish, but they're also knowing how to fish. So they're building into our pipeline. They're funneling it all back into the team, if that makes sense. I'll kind of keep going through my slides here, but if you lose contact or they stop responding, change the time you call, change the method you're trying to reach them with, drop off an updated CMA, find a way to maintain contact. Too many people go, they stopped calling me. They just must not want to work with me. I'd have FSBOs that stopped answering the phone for 2 weeks. And I'd be talking to the 2 other agents that cold called my office. And they're like, yeah, they're not answering. And I'm just going to stop calling them. They must already have an agent they're working with or changed their mind. They were on vacation. And I send them a text and they respond, or they're at work, or we're trying to call them at 8 a.m. when they're at work, and they get off at 5. I call at 5:30 one day. So I'd have intentional days of the week where I'd actually stay late. So typically I do my prospecting in the morning. So my system was based off is 9 to noon. So that's my 3-hour window that I do all of this in. But there'd be whether it be Wednesday or pick a day of the week where you have a schedule that you can stay a little later at the office, don't book your appointments, and try calling in the evenings. You'd be shocked how many times I'd call the FSBO 10 times, they didn't answer. I call one evening, they answer, right? These people have jobs, they have lives. That's how they got the property to begin with. So finding ways to work around their schedule. Things like dropping off that.
Hey, Jesse.
Okay. Yep.
Oh, sorry, a little delay there. Just to pepper in, I know this is also how I built my business, how Lexi built her business. I think this is really great and very well timed to this market. So thanks again for all this. Just a quick add on to what you just said. I remember one of my very, very first wins in the for sale by owner kind of space when I was brand new as well. And I had been calling a guy for 6 or 7 months. And it turns out he always had the intention that he was going to list. He deliberately over FSBO'd himself, and the way that he was picking his agent was who followed up the longest. And finally, one day he called me and he's like, I'm super impressed. I'm ready to hire you. And it was just because I'd been calling him once a week for like 6 or 7 months. It was a long time.
Yeah. And how many agents are willing to do that, right? Did he tell you like you're the only person? I'm sure that
it was last man standing. Right. Exactly.
Of course. Most people give up on the 4 week or the 3 week mark, 2 weeks even, or don't even call them more than 3 times because they're like, I don't want to be annoying. Right, you were willing to sit there and consistently call them every week for 6 months, right? Like that's a pretty long-term follow-up there. But I think that don't let your limiting beliefs get in the way of you, right? Because you could have easily talked yourself out of that deal. Right?
Oh, totally.
He doesn't want to work with me, obviously. And it's like, no, he called you 6 months, 7 months, and was like, hey, I was testing you. Like that's a cool story for sure. Kind of tying back into what I was finishing there was the drop off an unsolicited CMA or an updated CMA. I think that's huge. I had a lot of success with this. So I have my listing binder systems now, but I also have a FSBO binder that when a FSBO won't answer for me, maybe this is a aggressive strategy, but I love it. I just complete an unsolicited CMA based on the info I had, fill out a FSBO binder that was packed full of FSBO specific information. Like my listing binders are just kind of broad for listings. It would be just a bunch of information about FSBOs, all my FSBO stuff, all my evidence of success, before and after photos, everything about me. And I pack it in and I just drive by. If I didn't have appointments that day, I'd go on Google Maps, pinpoints for all the FSBO listings. And I just go drive around. All right, who hasn't answered for me or who has? I'm going to drop this off. I knock on the door, see if I can catch them at home. If they're not home, I leave it right on their front door with a big note, my business card. I use a door hanger that I put on their doorknobs. They see it. And then you'd be shocked how many times somebody wouldn't answer for me or hung up on the phone with me like 10 times. And I drop off this binder. The day after I drop off the binder, I call them and they answer first ring. They hadn't answered for me up until that point. Well, they got the binder. They spent all of yesterday evening looking through it with their wife, and they couldn't believe that I went through this extra effort in this process. And this guy put his time into doing a CMA. We haven't even talked to him. And they go, hey, I really found that really valuable. We've just been basing it off our estimate, our price, and knowing that, you went through the time of putting together the CMA, I really appreciate it. And it gave us a lot of insight, and we'd love to have an opportunity to meet with you. And that was somebody that, I couldn't tell you how many times that would happen. And that's just something that you can do. It's going to cost you $2 in fuel. And what better do you have to do, right? And especially in the shifting market, these are all low cost items in comparison to I know people spending $10,000, $20,000 a month on Zillow that have literally year for year broke even on Zillow, yet they keep doing it just to keep their agents happy. I'd much rather give my agents on my team opportunities to hold open houses than give them Zillow leads. These are low cost items. It teaches them to fish, and the quality of these leads are much higher. And it's all about what we do. It's not about what Zillow says, or if most of the time with these Zillow leads, they don't end up even closing with these agents. They have an agent they're already working with. They just want somebody to open the door. And so these folks we have higher level relationships with, and I think it's important, and it's something that we can control. And no matter how much the market shifts, like as long as I have a working phone, which if I had to go use the phone at like the Denny's down the road, I could technically, use my mom's old landline. If things got real bad, I hope they don't get that bad, of course. I can build my business off that, right? And so when I say that I could move to Australia tomorrow and build my business, I have full confidence I could do that, because I think there's just a skill set to it. And a lot of people, because of their fear, just aren't willing to do it. I know a lot of you on this call that maybe have had bad experiences with calling FSBOs. You hear me saying all these things, and of course I can't convince you of anything, but I'm telling you that, don't give FSBOs a bad rap. Don't let your limiting beliefs hold you back. Because think about if you made 5 calls a day intentionally to for sale by owners 5 days a week, that's 25 calls a week. What if you got a listing a month from that? I will commit to anyone on this call that if you are making 5 to 20 calls a day and you do not get a listing within your first 90 days, I will personally coach you as long as I need to get you over that hump. Because it just won't happen. If you can show me evidence that you called for 90 days, I don't care what you said to them. My team leader used to have a saying where he would say you could call and say, it's kind of an explicit term, so I won't go off on it, but you could basically barf. I know that's another one John and I talked about yesterday. You could barf on these people, literally butcher whatever you say. And if you say it to enough people, you will get a listing out of it. You don't have to say the perfect thing. You don't have to be the superstar with all this success. I started doing this when I was 18, 19 years old with no evidence of success at all. None of the value add services that I have now. And I was converting these folks at a high level. And how was I doing it? Just like Jeff did, follow up, being intentional, things that didn't cost money. Jeff, how much did it cost you to follow up with that guy for 6 months?
$0.
$0. How much was the commission on the property? Do you remember?
I think it was a 425, and I also took 3.5%. So whatever that is.
Right. That pays the bills. That's another listing. And you do that enough times, that's going to build your pipeline. And for everyone on this call, I think everyone here is doing deals, whether it be 12 or 70 deals a year. Is it going to hurt? Or is it going to be great to close another 12 this year? An additional 12 you wouldn't have had. And by the way, that are going to send you referrals, and this system starts to work on its own and snowballs to where like I said, I have FSBOs. Guess what? They're all friends with other people that are FSBOs. And they send referrals. They go, don't even waste your time. Call Jesse. Right. So I've got a huge group. I found that a lot of for sale by owners tend to be investors that are all, they know each other, and they all work with me because they know, like, I'm done trying to waste my time. I've sold a dozen houses by myself. But after I met Jesse, I'm working with you, and they send their friends and family to me as well, because they know the value I provide. I just had a client at the beginning of the last week leave me a review that said that Jesse was the first agent I've ever worked with that I felt like deserved the commission. Right. I thought that was a pretty cool compliment. I was like, interesting. I haven't seen that on a review before. But it's something where these people are out there advocating for me after I close the deal. And not just because I buttered them up and pretended to be a fan of the Dolphins. I'm not a big fan of the Dolphins, not a huge football guy, but because, they know the value I provided them, and they want their friends and family to experience that process, because I'm going to make their whole process sale completely different. And I'm going to make it the best and easiest transaction that they've ever had.
Just something I'd add on that is that, a lot of times work activity breeds activity.
Yeah.
And if you found that, like, okay, so when you really start pounding and working hard and working whatever system you are, all of a sudden you get business from other places.
Absolutely.
Because you're in action.
100%. And that it's hard to explain that compounding effect of this. So when I first started, right, I didn't have that evidence of success. I wasn't super busy. I had a lot of free time, right? And so what you think about it, if I'm making 20 calls a day, let's say that I start to convert a listing a week, those listings are going in MLS. Now it's open house opportunities. Now it's opportunities for me to farm and send mailers to the closest 250 homes. All these different things that are getting exposure. These activities, like you said, are generating other activities. I'm getting referrals. I'm getting myself in front of more people that may buy or sell. I'm getting myself in a relationship with more people that have a home to sell. And guess what? Most of the time for sell by owners end up buying a property too. Even if they're an investor, they're going to 1031 exchange that money. So now I didn't just get a $500,000 listing. I also got a $500,000 purchase. Oh, and I built a relationship, and they're going to send me 2 referrals in the next 24 months. And my agents on my team got 2 leads at the open, and one of those converted in the first 6 months. The second one converted a year later. And you can see how that can start to snowball. And that's just a few of the things. Let alone putting them in our past client database. We've just had our 2nd annual pumpkin pie giveaway. We bring pies to people all around the community, broke a record for pies we gave away. We're bringing these FSBOs a pie 4 years after we've worked with them. And they still remember us, right? So people forget about you every 17 days. Is that right, John? It's like these people don't forget. It's because I'm intentional around that, and they send me more business, and I create these raving fans out of these clients because of the experience I provide. And people underestimate how much people appreciate little things like a help with moving. So I pay a couple of my buddies. I've got a big community here locally, whether I pay like high school kids when they're off in the summer, whatever it might be, to go help my clients unload their U-Haul, or help my clients load up the big heavy washer dryer. I used to go out there myself personally. And I remember one day I closed my biggest sale ever. It was right after I got married. It was $1 million sale. I was like 20, I think, at the time, or maybe just turned 21. And it was the hottest day of summer. And these folks moved up from California. One of my favorite clients ever bought this huge property, 30 acres, 2 homes, the whole 9 yards. And me and Brendan, one of the agents on my team, went out there with another friend of ours. and spent all day unloading this 26-foot U-Haul that had turned into a makeshift sauna because it was right parked in the middle of the sun, and they've got like huge furniture, and we're like, what did we get ourselves into here? But that client has sent me, I know for a fact, because I just went through my past client database, 5 closed referrals since then of friends that moved up from California as well. That, guess what, also bought high price point homes, and that I was also able to serve. And instead of unloading their U-Haul, I paid for somebody to go out and help them. But if you don't have the money to pay somebody to help you, you can go out there and get your hands dirty yourself and provide value. I think you got to respect that. So,
Jesse, what's your favorite place to have referrals hosted for yourself?
Referrals hosted? What do you mean by that?
Like, where do you send your clients to post those referrals? Are you sending them to Google? Are you sending them to another
reviews?
site?
Reviews?
Yep, for reviews.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
I think I'm a big fan of Zillow.
We're
pushing. Oh, no, you're fine. Zillow, Facebook, and Google. But one of the things that I found that's super, it's the reason that I get up every morning and continue to, want to exceed my clients' expectations, is that long after they've left me their well-written Zillow or Google review, they're relaying those reviews through to all their friends and family. We have a big community page. I'm from Cottage Grove, just south of Eugene. It's like, what's going on in Cottage Grove, Oregon, and tons of people post in there like, I need a realtor, who would you recommend? And there's a ton of realtors here locally that are fine and great and dandy. My clients are like advocates and raving fans for my business. I literally have to go through and find every single person that's put my username on there and recommended me. And these people aren't just putting my name and just tagging me. They're like, Jesse Haffly is the best agent. Do not work with anybody else. Like, he literally is amazing. He will do everything for you. These people, like, long after they left me that review, which I think is even more valuable. Obviously having the review on Zillow is great, and I've been blessed to have a lot of raving fans leave me reviews, but they're spreading those reviews actively, week to week, month to month, years after I've closed them on a transaction.
Are you priming that at all, or is that based off the value that you created?
I used to not prime it at all, and I honestly would have people just say, Jesse, what's the secret? How are you getting so many referrals? And I literally just told them that you should do the right thing by people. I don't know. It's pretty cool. I've been very blessed. Now I'm a little more intentional, like I said, about like nurturing my past client database. I'm kind of ashamed to say this. Up until about maybe 2-3 months ago, I didn't even have my past client database in any sort of order. So no, I wasn't priming them. But now I'm being a little more intentional. Not really sure if we've seen the effect of it yet, just because it's just getting implemented. But that goes to show you how non-perfect your systems need to be. I didn't have a single system for any of my past clients that closed with me 4 years ago, and they're still tagging me on Facebook. They're still sending me referrals. And I have a process. When they send me a referral, of course, I send them a thank you card. I call them, we have a conversation. I appreciate the referral, talk to them about how important and how amazing, how much I appreciated it, but other than that, it's not like I have some fancy, intricate, crazy 12-step system that does all these different things. It's really just about the value I provide and the experience I provide, and it speaks for itself.
Yeah, that's awesome. This has been really informative.
I appreciate it. I'm glad.
Can I go back a second? You guys, first off, this is awesome, man. Absolutely amazing. And I appreciate everything. And I look forward to getting these slides, man. I've got a question though. You mentioned, you train other agents, right? And talk about like gaining momentum and how work brings work, right? Like doing the work brings business. Now that you're pretty successful and your other agents are gaining traction, do you ever see like somebody like taking off the gas, like letting off the gas? And because what I see in business is like, we work in like 90-day cycles. It takes like 90 days to get momentum. We finally get that going and we feel good about it. We're so focused on the business we have now that we don't continue to do the things that we did to get that business. And how do you avoid that, I guess? And do you still make calls?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And I think it's really well said. I think that is typically what's going to happen. So I have agents all the time on my team. So I had the guy on my team, Sky. I'm not sure if Sky's on the call right now or not. This guy shadowed with me in high school. He was 16 years old when he came in and shadowed, I'm pretty sure, 16, maybe 17. He got his license at 18, came back in. I'm like, wow, this kid actually followed through. He said he wanted to get in real estate. He's like, I want to hustle. I'm like, all right, we'll see what you want to do, buddy. And, we'll see about that. Right. And everybody on the team's like, I don't know if this guy's the right fit. I'm like, there's something about him. He's good. He's a good fit. And he told me he wanted to do the work. And keep in mind, this guy was 18 years old, looked all of 18, loved him to death. But he was, I say that as something that's a compliment to this guy, because he was I mean, he's absolutely crushed it out of the park. The kid's a top producer now. He's crushing it. He just closed, I think he closed 6 transactions last month. And it's his real first year and a half. But the point being that, you know, he went through that cycle his first time where he got super caught up and busy, right? Work creates work. So he had more deals pending than he ever had before. And he went through his first porpoising cycle, right? So you build all that momentum, and then you stop doing what got you that momentum, and then it kind of comes down, and you close all those deals, and you go, oh God, what do I do now? And so I think what limits you from recreating that is, so if you're tracking your leads, you're tracking what you're doing, you're tracking your daily activities, even at a very basic level. We all know that. I don't think there's a single agent in this business that's prospected that hasn't experienced a porpoising cycle. Would you like to continue to experience a life in a business that porpoises? No, most people would say absolutely not. I'd really rather have a consistent business. Okay, well, guess what? You're in control of that. So I guess my answer to the question is, if you're aware that that's the cycle, well, who can change that cycle and the results that come from it? You can. And no matter how busy you are, you can always set aside an hour a day. And maybe you can't make 20 phone calls a day because you're so busy, which is great. That means it's working. You can make 5, you can make 10. And maybe one day you can, instead of call it 9, you call it 5, and you make your 20 calls. But don't stop doing what got you the result. Don't stop doing that activity. It'd be like going to the gym, losing weight, and then just stop. No, I'm done with the gym, or going on a diet. I lost the weight. I'm done with my diet. It's like, well, you're going to constantly porpoise, right? And so it's the consistency is the key word. And like I talked about with Sky, like he experienced that porpoising. So once you've experienced the pain of that, and oh gosh, it felt good to be so busy, and you know, you don't want to lose that. And so now he's not going to continue to recreate that. And if he does, we can have coaching around that and go, okay, how can we make sure that you have structured time in place? Because even when I've closed 16 deals in a month, I still had time. If I was intentional, the time block in my calendar, maybe I need to get to the office a little earlier. Maybe I need to push my appointments off until the afternoon. But with intention, you can always work around it. I don't care how busy you are.
I love that. I think that's huge, man. And I guess you know, I'm really focused on growing my team as well. And one of the things that I'm trying to be more intentional about is maybe making sure that's a part of the coaching. Is that something like, do you have a system or a plan on making sure that you keep them on track and keep them motivated to do the work?
Absolutely. So we use the greatness tracker. It's like a core coaching thing Summit Funding provides. Rick Ruby, I think, was like the original creator of it. I could send everybody that PDF. If you have a lender you work with that works with Summit, they can send it to you. All of the Summit loan officers use it. It's just a daily activity tracker. It's called the greatness tracker. We've modified it a little bit to fit our real estate needs because they have some stuff that's more lending specific on there. But like I said, one of my major mentors is Robin Lavaster, which if any of you know Robin, if you don't, I'd encourage you to reach out and get to know her because she's an amazing person. I truly think that she's I don't even know how she's a human being. She built her business like one of the top lenders in the state, raising triplets, like never missed a soccer game, like just a phenomenal person, very charitable, all this stuff. And guess how she built her business? No fancy. I mean, I'm sure she has very fancy marketing systems now and plenty of staff. She built it off the greatness tracker, which is a one-page PDF form that really honestly is not fancy at all. It looks like it was made back in the 80s and it's been scanned 10,000 times on bad printers, but it works.
We just put the link to it in the chat.
Okay, beautiful. Yep. And so I think it's a huge piece of value. It allows tracking that information, and I put them on a performance plan. So if an agent's closing, if they're above their threshold, like let's say that their goal for the year was to close 24, you know, if they're getting their deals, they're getting their deals. But if they're not meeting their goal, and if they want to be on a performance plan, which a lot of the agents on the team, they know the value of it, so they want to be on a performance plan, we set a goal for daily activities, and that might be 10 calls a day. Maybe one agent wants to be ambitious and make 40 calls a day. We're gonna have them track those calls, and we use the greatness tracker. And that goes for every different form of prospecting or activity, whether it's door knocking, open houses, all these things, tracking it, putting on your greatness tracker. That way you can look back and go, I always say, like you said, 90-day cycles. The result, your business today is a result of what you did 60 and 90 days ago, most likely, and even further back. And so having that data to look back and go, why did I have such a great July? And why am I having such a poor December? It takes you out of fear-based thinking. Like John and I talked, I think it was last week or the week before, about great business people don't speak in generalities. And so I think it's important to have information to know why your pipeline is the way it is today. I know I've had months where I'm like, gosh, I'm closing a record number of deals. And it's like, how did this happen? It's like, I can look and see how this happened. Okay, where did these deals come from? And why are they not here in December? And I think that having that, much like knowing how to fish rather than just being given fish by Zillow, gives you confidence and allows you to really be confident in your ability and your ways of creating and generating business and income.
I like it. And then the last thing, Jeff and them can tell you, I'll talk all day if you let me. I've got another question. So when you say calls, and I think we all, think about this differently. When you say calls, are you is that conversations or like total number of dials?
Not total number of dials, right? Because I think it's conversations. Now it could be a conversation where they hang up on you. That's a technical conversation. You reach them, even if it's 25 seconds. But I think if you count voicemails, you're doing yourself a major disservice. That's not a connection. And I think I've seen a lot of people in my time in the business that they try to do the bare minimum. So they set their goal at 10, they leave 10 voicemails, they send 10 text messages and did it. Wow. And then the same agent that did that, and they're like, I'm out of the office for the day. It's 11. I did my prospecting. They're in here complaining they're not getting transactions. And it's like, oh, well, there's a reason for that, right? You can look at what you've done, and the quality of the conversations you have, the quality of the daily activities that you're doing is going to be it generates your results, right? And so I think that's how I talk about that a little bit. So
nice. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mike, Jesse and I talked yesterday for a few minutes about this presentation. And one of the things he said is like, I'm concerned that I don't want to be too raw, that I'm concerned I don't want to tell people the truth. And I go, what do you mean? And he says, well, it's freaking hard work.
Yeah.
Get to work, do what's uncomfortable. That's the reality of it. This is a hard market. This is a hard business. You got to do whatever it takes. And it's about what has to be done to make it happen. And he really talked about obsession.
Yep. It's obsession.
And if you hear that today, you hear obsession.
Yep.
And obsession for results, but results don't come without activity.
Yep.
And share a little bit about that, Justice, because it's easy to focus on results.
Sure.
But that's not really what you're doing, are you? You're focusing on activity.
No, you're focusing on activities because activities lead to results. And I'm very obsessive. So, I was a nerd when I was a kid. I would sit there and I'd play video games 16 hours straight, right? I get very obsessed with whatever I do. My wife will tell you that. She'll catch me. Whatever I'm doing, I'm very obsessive with it, right? I'm passionate about what I do. And I want to master whatever I'm doing, whether it could literally be anything. I get lost in whatever I'm doing. And I think that is what ultimately made me differentiate myself from other agents. I think a lot of them just kind of were that fear-based thinking. They were focusing too heavily on the results. They had been cold calling for 2 weeks and they hadn't got a listing. So they're going to stop cold calling. It doesn't work for me. You're the cold calling guy, Jesse. I don't know how to cold call. That is insanity. You need to call for 90 days. Do not test a theory. Do not even try this unless you're willing to commit to at least 90 days. And I say 90 days and when I say that, it makes me cringe a little bit. What more do you have to do, right? If your pipeline's empty, cold calling can be such a great way to supplement your business, and people are afraid of doing it. They've had bad experiences. I don't want to be salesy. That's all excuses. What's really more painful is not having deals in your pipeline or having to explain, oh, we can't go on that vacation, honey, because my pipeline's dead this month. Or I gotta make more commission. I gotta get a deal under escrow before we can close or go on a trip. I just think that I talked to you about that yesterday, John, because when I first, I think it was rookie of the year, it was my second technical year in real estate. They had me speak on a board at Keller Williams, and there was a bunch of agents that were top producers up on the board. And the girl that went ahead of me, I'm 19, I'm very ADHD, high energy personality. To be honest with you, I wasn't really listening to what she was saying before me. And she had talked about how much anxiety she has, and she struggles with social anxiety and making phone calls. And so she prefers to work with her sphere. And I love that. She has a great business. But then, 19-year-old me goes up next. I'm like, gym bro, and they're all revved up on pre-workout and stuff. And I go, you can't be afraid to hit the phones. Like, you can't be afraid to talk to people. Like, you have to be willing to prospect. And I remember I got this look from my team leader at the time in the back of the room. He's like, you didn't listen to her before you went, huh? And that's why I talked to you about that yesterday, John, because I don't want to offend people. I understand it's not for everyone, but at the same time, I really wish that in the most loving and caring way that the woman that spoke before me could understand, don't be afraid of rejection. It's not going to hurt you. Like my mom used to always say, sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. FSBO could literally spit on me, could cuss me out over the phone. None of it bothers me. And I think the agents on my team can attest to that, because I literally will get off the phone and I'll just laugh, right? Those people obviously are better off working by themselves. They don't cooperate well with others, right? And I don't let that deter me from feeding my family and putting opportunities out there for myself and my team. And that's something that's important to me, and I pride myself.
And again, man, like all of this is great. So like, whatever you and John talked about, I think it worked. One of the things, we've mentioned obsession a couple of times now, and I'm the same type. Like I think, obviously I'm older than you, but we have a lot of the same characteristics. For one, pre-workout is my jam, man. Like I'm ready for the morning, I get going. But when we talk about obsession, man, like it's a healthy thing if it's focused, right? Like whether people want to admit it or not, everybody's obsessed with something, and you are what you think about, right? So if we're constantly thinking about growing our business, that's what's going to happen. If we're constantly scared to grow our business isn't going to grow, right? So I think that's huge.
Jesse, are you able to hear me? I know we lost the very end of Mike there.
I lost Mike, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because the thing I love that you've hit on today, which has always been the philosophy that I had, is that if you want less stress in real estate, you have to understand how to prospect.
100%.
And I think the thing that people are running into is it's like, well, all of this worked for me last year. Yeah. The average per agent productivity was up last year. The average number of transactions was way up, depending on what market you're in. Price points were up. So, I mean, the joke that I keep saying is like, you could stand in the middle of the street last year and get hit by an escrow, and it's like, what's that?
It was mortgage Disneyland. That's all I'm talking about, right? It's like exactly. It was so easy to make money. I mean, like it was overwhelming. There was so much business, right? It just came to them. It's like, stand in the street, toss a rock.
And I think getting out of that, and you called it earlier what it was, and revealed your thinking on this, which I like, is you called it an entitlement. Having a real estate license is not a W-2.
No
so
doubt.
Just because you have a license does not mean that you are now entitled to compensation. So you may be entitled to compensation. No, it's not. That doesn't work that way, right? So, and if you're offended by having to do work, that's going to backfire really hard.
100%.
And yet somebody like Jesse, I think here's the benefit of being part of EXP, of being part of the community, of being connected to what we're doing right now, is that you can show up today, you can get a little bit of information. You didn't need a ton of info from this call. What you needed was to hear someone like Jesse say, listen, if you do this for 90 days, this is going to produce a result. I will tell you that for sure. The number of calls where I've got off the call and I was like, wow, that was the worst thing that anyone has ever freaking said to anyone. And yet, still at the end of the day, like, you have to measure your year, not your day, not your call.
Exactly.
Like, I tried an open house and it didn't work. Okay, did you try 50 open houses in a row for 50 days in a row? I had a friend, when he came into real estate, he did 50 days in a row doing open houses every single day. And he didn't do like 2 hours. He got there at 8 a.m. and he left at 8 p.m. At the end of that, he couldn't do it anymore. His pipeline was so bonkers full that he, like, literally he was slammed. Anything will work if you work it. The problem is just you gotten soft.
Yep. And people, I think a lot of times end up, and I think it really is an entitlement. I really like that word. I always say that, like, if my mom listed her house with another agent, like, that's my fault. That's not my mom's fault. I'm not entitled to anyone's business. I don't care if it's my mom, my dentist, whoever it is. Like, I think too many agents, like, it blows me away. I've had FSBOs that the reason they're for sale by owner is they know so many agents that they can't bring themselves to pick between them because they think they're going to offend somebody else. I'll call their family member. I'll call the other agent and let them know. I've told my FSBOs, you want me to call them and let them know that you're going to list with me? Because they don't want to have that conflict, right? But that entitlement that agents have to their sphere, I've closed hundreds of houses. They're going to keep sending me business even in a down market. It's great if they do. You can't control that. Would you rather have a business where you're sitting there hoping and praying to the real estate gods they're going to send you a referral, or that you can know that you can get to work and do those activities and generate business, and more people that will end up sending you referrals, which is going to ultimately end up, you're going to get more referrals the more people that you have that are sending you referrals. So it's like, it's just something where it's like, I'm very blessed to get a high level of referrals, and a high number of those. I'd love to think that in this market, as it starts to shift, that I'll continue to get those referrals. I'm not going to rely on it. And that comes from an agent that I closed 79 deals personally last year. Just under $30 million in volume, right? And I say that, and it's something where I'm obsessive. I want to keep my business growing, and I don't want to stop doing the things that made it grow.
Well, that's just slightly above average. I mean, so that's good, man. Just kidding.
I appreciate it. And I
That's
think
great.
speaking of entitlement, one of the last things I wanted to share is that I think a lot of people, instead, like I said, with the 90 days minimum, I think 90 days still makes me cringe. I think too many people, like, they hold one open and they're like, open houses doesn't work, so I'm going to pivot. Maybe they hold a couple and it doesn't work, or they don't follow up. They don't look at what in my process could I change to make it better and get a better outcome. They decide they're going to switch strategies. And that's one of the biggest flaws I see agents do. You want to run in place all day. You want to just waste your time and have a horrible experience in real estate. Try changing your strategy every other week, because you're not getting results. That's not a long enough time period. I see people all the time that, because they think that, you can run in place all day and really get a good workout in, you're not getting anywhere though. And so these people they're star realtor, they're open houses 1 month, they're FSBOs the next month. And they never really get any results from any of it because they never mastered the activity they were doing.
Well,
Now,
that's it.
Exactly. That's the big thing I'd focus
It's consistency. You keep bringing it up today. It's consistency. It's like, how many people set a goal like, I'm going to lose weight after the new year? We're coming up on New Year's resolutions, which I always, it's like New Year's failure day. It's like by 5 p.m. that day, they're already eating leftovers again. It's whatever it was. It's just silly. On some level, you'd be best off to just be like, I'm not going to eat anything every day until 6 p.m. And just that one change, just consistently over the next year, you do what I did. I lost 85 pounds doing that. Like it's one small thing that you can just commit to over time. And sometimes it's painful. Like that's not fun. And guess what? Calling a FSBO and they tell you to bleep off or whatever, especially the first time, and you're like, wow, man, people are raw. Like, whoa. But then, you just get past it. You move on.
Exactly. You move on.
Awesome.
And what's really more important, are you going to let that person that told you, fuck off or whatever it was on the phone, are you going to let that person hold you back from creating a pipeline and building your business? Or are you going to go out there and you're going to hunt and you're going to put food on the table and you're going to provide and you're going to overcome those objectives? And the same guy that told you to, bleep off or whatever, you end up listing his house and selling it for 30 over, and he sends you a referral, right?
Correct.
And you tell him at the end of the transaction, like jokingly, remember when you told me to bleep off? I've literally had FSBOs like that where they were super aggressive with me and they end up loving me like, man, you do not give up. And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm going to sell your house.
Absolutely.
And they're like, oh, yeah. And I sell their house and they're like, this kid would not give up. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Good. You're not gonna hurt.
I love that, man. You've got this awesome spirit, and I think your connection to the behaviors is really what's creating your result. And hopefully, here's what I want actually really quickly. We've got a lot of people still on the call here. Thank you guys for being here live. I know a lot of you are watching this on the replay. That's amazing. And we're also going to have this up on YouTube. But also, I just would love for you guys, if you've gotten value out of today or inspired to go do some action in the FSBO space to maybe kick your 90 days, would you hit us in the chat and just say yes? And just kick us back so that Jesse knows that he didn't waste his time today showing up massive value. Steve, Tamiko, Hugo, Joe, that's awesome. Allie, Jeannie, Chad, thank you guys. That's incredible. Really great.
Any of you set that goal of calling for 90 days? Whether you start now or January, I'd encourage you to start now. I think New Year's resolutions are hilarious in that way. Just start that goal now. It's going to benefit you. If you start calling and you're struggling, or you want to pick my brain, call me anytime. Text me. I'm easy to get a hold of. So.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for being here. And I just also want to say, I know we've got a few guests on here today, some people who are kind of sniffing things out. And I want you guys to understand, if you're looking at whether it's eXp Realty or obviously the community, because whomever invited you today is already a member. The community is really just a value add here at eXp Realty. We're really about helping all of our agents to succeed. It's one of the benefits of being in an environment where all of us are owners. And when we all win, we all win. It's really cool how this works. And so I just have to say, first off, thank you, Jesse. Incredible. Thank you to all of you for being here. We wouldn't have calls like this unless everyone was showing up, participating, and being a part of our collective success. And I just want to tell everybody, be consistent. It's a season of consistent action. And if you do that, like Jesse's doing, like many of you are already doing, you will see your market share increase. I was talking with some top agents yesterday about this. If you did 80 deals last year, you do 80 deals this year, your business did not stay the same. The market got smaller. Your business just gained market share. When the market recovers, guess what happens to your business? You gain market share, right? When you gain market share, it's incredible. So this is the time to get consistent, to work hard. Jesse, you're a badass, Tamiko says. That's awesome.
You're a badass as well. I appreciate everybody's time on the call today as well. So
fun. Well, listen, Jesse, thank you again. We got to have you on. I know everybody's going to want to hear more from you in the future. So can we get you sometime in 2023 to come do another one of these with us?
I'm available. Hit me up.
You're the man. All right. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you guys being here.
All right, you guys
Woohoo!
take care.